It's Jaguars week as the Indianapolis Colts travel south to take on their divisional foes, attempting to win in Jacksonville for the first time in 10 years. What will it take for Anthony Richardson and company to pull off a victory? And how does the Colts defense keep Trevor Lawrence in check? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host of the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, Drake Wally. Drake, we're on to Jacksonville. Jacksonville, we all know the history there. We all know the curse with this Indianapolis Colts team. Can't get over the hump. Cannot beat the Jaguars in Jacksonville. This goes all the way back to the days of Andrew Luck. For some reason, Indianapolis just can't get it done down there in Duval.
Yeah, maybe it's the humidity. Maybe it's just that there's so many nice things to do down there and they're not used to all those beaches and oceanfront views. But I do have to say, this is a different type of circumstance right now. You're dealing with a team that, while the Colts do have their injuries, man, the Jaguars have injuries we'll get into, and they are spiraling worse than any NFL team out there right now. They're the last team without a win. So the Colts have an opportunity here, but man, Trevor Lawrence, I've never seen him look this bad, so I'm just waiting for a bounce back game. So you can't let it happen to you.
Exactly. And the thing is, too, yes, the Jaguars are 0-4, but they probably should have beat the Houston Texans a week ago. It took heroics from C.J. Stroud to really pull that one off against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So if the Colts are expecting this to be a game where they can easily roll over their opponent, they've got another thing coming. And if they do then I think that we could see another blowout by the hands of the Jacksonville Jaguars down there in Jacksonville for this Colts team. Truitt is in the chat as always. He says, even without JT, we can do this. And then talking a little trash for Trevor Lawrence, $275 million for what? Yes, the Jaguars did sign Trevor Lawrence to a $275 million extension this offseason, and it hasn't looked good to start for Trevor Lawrence. That's for sure. Sean Contright as well, always in the chat. Good to see you, my friend. And he says, I think we win Sunday, but it won't be easy. A little optimism from Sean tonight. Paul Wilson, okay, boys, it's time to think positive. I'm on a hot streak. We will win this game. A lot of positivity out of the Colts fans this week, which is honestly a little surprising, Drake, considering it is Jacksonville week. And Donald Markham, there is a dangerous team, or the Jacksonville Jaguars are a dangerous team. The Colts better start fast. So as you guys get into the chat here and settle in, we hope you're following us on all of our social medias, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts_SI on X, and then right here on the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel, make sure you're subscribed and click that bell so you know when Drake and I go live on nights like tonight. It's a Wednesday night, not our normal Thursday night. You never want to miss us. So make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell. And then wherever you listen to podcasts as well, subscribe there and make sure you give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you, continue building the community over here at Horseshoe Huddle. So Drake, let's dive right into it. The early line is the Colts are 3-point underdogs to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Honestly, expected. Even though the Jags, again, 0-4, they've had some close games, and we all know the history down there in Jacksonville for the Colts. So I think being a 3-point underdogs actually was a little bit more generous than I was expecting this line to be. Obviously, it's Wednesday, so the line could move a little bit, but the Jaguars are going to be favored all the way up until kickoff. Over under set at 46, so not the highest scoring game, but definitely an opportunity for points to be put up, as both of these defenses are pretty banged up at the moment.
Yeah, and you got to remember that the odds makers do, as Andrew has pointed out multiple times, which I didn't even know this until hearing Andrew mention it, and I've always been fascinated by these money lines and stuff. Doesn't the home team get like a grace of 2
to 3 points usually? Every home team does, at least in the NFL. Yes,
that basically means the Jags are either a pick 'em or it's barely that they're like a 1-point favorite. It's just that they're at home, which is huge for this matchup because, like you've mentioned, the Colts they've just been inept at playing in Jacksonville.
Exactly. So obviously the big news since Sunday and what everyone's been wondering or wanting a status update on is Anthony Richardson. He left the game early against the Pittsburgh Steelers last Sunday with an oblique injury is what they are calling it. Hip, oblique, abdominal strain. It's in his core. We know that much. So, and honestly, after the game, Richardson was feeling pretty good. He said, just couldn't accelerate how I wanted to, was pretty sore. Well, we heard from Anthony Richardson today, and Richardson said that he is making really good progress, feeling a lot better than he did even yesterday. And we were able to see Anthony Richardson was out there practicing on a limited basis. So and I said this on Monday, but I'll be kind of shocked if Anthony Richardson doesn't play at this point, considering he's already back practicing in a limited capacity. Shane Steichen even said Richardson doesn't even really need to practice to be able to play. They've got enough faith in him that he can go out there and do the job, and he'll be getting all the mental reps when he's not in there. So we'll see if he practices in full tomorrow and the rest of the week. It'll obviously depend on how he feels. But Drake, I want to kind of get your opinion on this, just kind of what your sense is. We don't have any insider information on this, but do you think Richardson's going to end up playing on Sunday? Because, like I said, for me, I'd be a little bit surprised at the least if number 5 isn't suited up and leading this offense.
Yeah, and when he was asked about people that have said or that have thought at any given moment if he's injury prone, what does he think about that? And he says, I'm pretty sure that they would also be sore too. So it's like fair, Anthony, very fair. I think that he's going to play. I think that they're being cautious. I think that he's very smart, very intelligent. He was looking good in that game before he got hurt against the Steelers. I think the Colts are fine with just letting him sit, do the light work. He had a limited participant workout, for practice. So he's going to play, basically. Yeah, I'm very confident.
I would assume so. And let's kind of, as we preview this, let's go under the assumption that Anthony Richardson does play. If not, It will be Joe Flacco. But Joe Flacco himself even said today he's not expecting to start on Sunday. So we're going to go into this with the assumption that Anthony Richardson is out there taking the snaps for the Colts. And then it's a big question: can he have success against this Jacksonville team? Because when you look at the stats from the Jacksonville defense, it's not pretty, Drake. They're 31st in the NFL against the pass. If you're looking at the concrete numbers, the Jacksonville Jaguars are averaging 272.8 yards per game through the air. So I know this secondary has been banged up. They don't have their top cornerback in Tyson Campbell. He is on injured reserve currently. So if Anthony Richardson is out there and available, he's going to have some opportunities through the air to make plays with his arm. And I think that obviously that's probably the bigger area of concern with this oblique strain and this abdominal strain is really with his legs. But obviously it affects your core too, because you're using your entire core when you're throwing the football. But at the same time, you're going up. If there's any game to get back on track and kind of continue what we saw in those first drives out of Anthony Richardson, Drake, it's Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, like you mentioned, there are going to be opportunities to attack this defense. I mean, they're down a couple guys that we'll get to later. One guy who is in the second level, another who is a defensive back. Very crucial key players for them defensively. But, you look at these games, and I will say, Jacksonville's lost them all. But outside of that game against the Bills, which, to be honest, was really hard to watch, even if you're not a Jags fan, it was hard to watch that. And outside of that, though, they've lost by 3, by 5, and by 4. So these games haven't been too far out of reach for this team, and they actually haven't allowed more than 24 points outside of that game. So they did lose to the Browns, though, which is a team that I think is similar to Jacksonville, or kind of almost on the verge of spiraling, whereas Jacksonville's just full sputtering. But you just can't overlook them. But yes, there's absolutely an opportunity because they're like 31st or 30th in pass defense, man.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. If Anthony Richardson's able to go out there and he takes his time like we saw against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think he'll be just fine. He'll be able to hit those short to intermediate throws. Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs are getting going after last week, so you're going to have those guys out there ready to go. I think when you look at the Jaguars depth chart as well, of who is out there playing corner and who's going to be matched up with these guys. I mean, you have Ronald Darby and Monteric Brown as the two cornerbacks. Jerry and Jones has been hurt, and he's out there as well. Obviously, the safeties are Andre Sisco and Darnell Savage. You kind of have to be a little bit aware of what those guys are doing. But I think this matchup is very favorable for the passing offense of the Indianapolis Colts, Drake, especially when you look at that Tyson Campbell is down, their best cornerback, who is, I think, criminally underrated across the league.
Yeah.
But again, it's we're going to continue to come back to this, but it's true. Anthony Richardson just has to settle in. If Anthony Richardson goes out there and he's trying to force things, or his processing is sped up, and he starts getting too excited, he's going to end up sailing those throws, and he's not going to be accurate. He's not going to be consistent. He's going to have to settle in quickly and just focus on doing what he did to start the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We really saw things start to slow down for Anthony Richardson. And if that could continue on Sunday, then abdominal strain or not, I think he's going to be just fine and could be in for a solid outing against this Jags defense.
Yeah. I mean, like, back to what you mentioned about the Pittsburgh Steelers game, a couple of those completions were stupid. I mean, one of them was we talked about it. It was just in only a football-sized pocket, and it just fit right in there beautifully to Michael Pittman. So it started to all come together, I think, in that game, and I think we were on our way to seeing a pretty good performance. So if Richardson can do that, he could start that way. Led 2 good drives before getting hurt. We'll see, man. They might be able to start off hot.
Exactly. And they might have to lean on the passing game considering what's happening in the run game. Jonathan Taylor, there's a good chance Jonathan Taylor does not play on Sunday. He didn't practice today. It was confirmed that he's dealing with a high ankle sprain. However, it was also reported by Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, that the high ankle sprain seems to be minor, which is good news. And Shane Steichen also confirmed this week they're not considering putting Jonathan Taylor on short-term IR. And you remember when DeForest Buckner just a couple of weeks ago had his high ankle sprain, he was placed on IR because it's going to take at least 4 games for Buckner to be back. Josh Downs took him 6 weeks to come back from that high ankle sprain. So even though it's a mild high ankle sprain, Drake, and they're saying that the Colts really dodged a bullet, I think it's going to be really tough for Jonathan Taylor to play on Sunday. Obviously, he could. We might see him, for all we know, he might try go out there and practice in a limited capacity. But I think all signs are pointing to Jonathan Taylor missing at least this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Potentially could be back next week against the Tennessee Titans. But it's really hard to come back from a high ankle sprain. And Drake, I would think that even if he is out there this week with a high ankle sprain, he's going to be severely limited.
Yeah, and you got to look back to his history with this too. Do you know?
Right.
I don't know, but do you know if it's on the same?
It is. It's the same. It's the same ankle that the injury that he dealt with in 2022 and last in 2023.
Nope. If I was the coach, I'd be like, I mean, look, man. Steichen wants him to play. Richardson wants him to play. Nobody wants to play more than Taylor. Okay. But he's going to go out there 60%, okay? And that's really, we've made this argument, well, an 80% Jonathan Taylor is better than, the next best back. Maybe not now. All right, that's not a good idea to put him out there. I would not be surprised at all if number 27 and 31, Goodson and Sermon, kind of do like a Pittsburgh Steelers 2023 thing where they just kind of share the workload.
Well, and we talked about this when Josh Downs had the high ankle sprain. If it's not 100% healed up, that's something that can continue to be re-injured. Look at T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton back in 2018 when the Colts were making that run to try to make the playoffs, he played basically the entire last half of the season on a high ankle sprain, and it really, well, he was able to produce. I mean, he was pretty much running in a straight line. He was not able to cut laterally. And when you think of all these runs that Jonathan Taylor has had this year, a lot of them are his ability to quickly cut laterally and find those open holes. So again, I don't think that it's even the smartest decision to have Jonathan Taylor out there this weekend. And so if I had to put money on it, I would say JT is out this week against the Jaguars. But Drake, you brought it up. That puts the onus on Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson. Trey Sermon has been the one that's gotten the bulk of the carries, the bulk of the running back 2 carries when Jonathan Taylor has to come out for a breather. And we saw that last week as well in the fourth quarter after Jonathan Taylor hurt his ankle. It's primarily Trey Sermon in there. So Trey Sermon would likely be the guy that's getting the most carries, but I don't necessarily think it would be in a bell cow role. I really like what you said, that it'd probably be more like how it was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a kind of a running back by committee. You have Trey Sermon as your ground and pound guy. Tyler Goodson comes in as that third down pass catching back, and you just do a running back by committee. I think that's probably the most likely approach we're going to see against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, it might cause some tough sledding for the Colts, though, because the Jags much better against the run than they are against the pass. They're 10th in the league in yards per game allowed on the ground at 107.3. So, Drake, do you think Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson is going to be enough for this Colts running attack or rushing attack to be effective against the 10th ranked Jags run defense?
I mean, they did it against Pittsburgh. I know they had Jonathan Taylor, but I think that I'm referencing that because of that offensive line right now. I really feel like you could put damn near any running back there, and they would probably be able to pick up at least four yards of carry. I mean, I know that obviously Kelly's questionable. He's got the neck injury, but Tanner Bortolini was serviceable. And again, you're going against a Pittsburgh defense that people were calling him on a historical pace. Okay, like they were a seriously talented defense, and the Colts offensive line was able to do what they've been doing the entire season. So I just can't see how you're not going to at least lean on the ground game. Absolutely, you have to attack that pass defense. But yeah, I think there is absolutely success, especially though for Tyler Goodson, way more explosive, way faster, and way more elusive.
Yeah, I think so as well. And if you like we had kind of mentioned, if you're not able to really rely on the ground game, then it's going to be the passing attack that's going to need to carry the load. But when you look at this, the Colts could have the advantage. I'm getting back to this because I really think they're going to have the advantage in the passing game, especially the pass catchers, because Josh Hines-Allen dealing with a concussion, he may not clear protocol, and then the Jags are down their best pass rusher. You're looking at in that second level of the defense. Foy Oluokun is on injured reserve dealing with an injury. Devin Lloyd is also on the injury report. That could be the top 2 linebackers for the Jags down. And then we've already mentioned about Campbell being on IR. So the stars of this Jaguars defense are really banged up. So Drake, what do you think? Do you think that the Colts pass catchers are going to have the advantage on Sunday? And if so, who do you think is poised to benefit from that the most?
It's, I really badly want to say A.D. Mitchell just because he's been so freaking open. But I'm going to say Michael Pittman Jr. That's the one who's going to benefit the most just because I think that intermediate range, and he kind of covers everything from that intermediate to short range. And of course he can hit the downfield throw, but that's more Pierce's thing. I think that there is more of an opportunity to attack them through the air because of the guys you just mentioned that might not play. Let's just hypothetically say that Oluokun, Hines-Allen, Lloyd, all 3 of those guys don't play. Oh my gosh, man. I mean, you're going back to your backup linebackers to potentially have to deal with Josh Downs in the short game, Michael Pittman in intermediate, and then you've you're down a couple guys in the secondary to deal with Alec Pierce, who's shown that he's one of the most explosive weapons in football. So I think that, I usually we talk about the ground game. Even if Taylor was playing, I think the way to attack this defense is through the air.
Yeah, and Stats Matt couldn't be here tonight, but he did send me his stats before the show. So the first Stats Matt stat of the day presented by Busch Light. This goes back to the running game. And he says JT has 7 runs of 10 plus yards over expected and 5 first down runs over expected. The Jags defense has allowed negative 30 rushing yards over expected, which is the 6th best, and negative 6 first downs over expected, which is the 2nd best. So Jonathan Taylor has been, according to these metrics, overachieving. And the Jaguars defense has been really putting running backs and running games in their place. So that's why I'm thinking that it really could be the passing game. The passing game has to be efficient and it has to be consistent for the Colts to win on Sunday, because the Jaguars are going to do everything they can. Ryan Nielsen, the defensive coordinator for the Jags, he's going to put everything into stopping this run game and forcing Anthony Richardson to beat him. We kind of already saw what this defense might look like, because Ryan Nielsen was the defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons last year. And if you remember, that Atlanta Falcons defense didn't allow much from this Colts offense. Yes, it was Gardner Minshew out there. Michael Pittman Jr. was not out there. He had a concussion, but at the same time, the Falcons defense really made it tough for the Colts offense. So if we're looking at that, I think you can kind of get a sense of what the Jaguars are going to try to do on offense, but I do think it's going to have to be the passing attack that ultimately leads this offense on Sunday. And I think if I had to pick a receiver that you lean on, I'm picking the same guy, Drake, Michael Pittman. I say this often, but good things happen when the ball is in Michael Pittman Jr.'s hands. Anthony Richardson was finding Michael Pittman Jr. early and often. In that game last week, on the first 2 drives, Pittman had 60 yards receiving on those first 2 drives. And what happened? Anthony Richardson led the offense right down the field for a touchdown and was on his way to another touchdown before he got hurt. Keep feeding Michael Pittman Jr. Keep feeding Josh Downs. Yes, you want to take the shots to Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell if they're available. You don't just want to dink and dunk all game. You want to still keep the defense honest and put some stress on those safeties, but rely on your top 2 guys that will consistently move the chains down the field for you. So a game plan similar to the one they used against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they could use and execute it well against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, and hell yes, I remember that game last year. I remember that family watched, college football and everything, and I watched that Colts game on Christmas Eve basically by myself, and they got destroyed. All right, Taylor Heineke destroyed them, and backup quarterbacks continue to be the Colts' bane of existence. But you're absolutely right. I think that Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, just like last week we talked about, they were our X factors. Well, they led the dance and catches. They led the dance and playmaking. Josh Downs had the touchdown. Pittman had almost, I think like 18, 19 yards per catch, like 103 yards on 6 catches. So that's the kind of performance you need from Michael Pittman. I'm not saying it's going to happen again, but like 5, 6, 7 catches, I think 5 is the bare minimum, because once he hits 5, man, the guy just seems to catch everything and it gets like to 8, 9, and 10. So I think that if you can get that sort of performance out of Michael Pittman that you didn't have last year, that might be the difference maker that could have got you to win.
And it'll help Anthony Richardson get into a rhythm as well. Let's look at the chat here. Gardaki's Playground. Appreciate it, man. Hit the like button for the algorithm. Yes, make sure you hit the like button on the video right now. Whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or X, hit that like button and share our video. Let's get as many people in here as possible. Thank you so much. Then we've got our first super chat of the evening from who else? Paul Wilson. Paul, thank you so much for all of your support. We really, really do appreciate appreciate it. And Paul coming in hot, talking about the offensive line. The Jags haven't faced the best O-line in football. Shane can call any game plan he wants. It is nice. Yeah, it is nice though for this Colts team to be able to rely on the offensive line. Certainly give Anthony Richardson some time. The advanced metrics did not go favorably for the Colts offensive line last week in terms of pass protection, but against the run, they are still very high up there. So again, we'll see a bounce. We'll see if the Colts can bounce back. We'll see if Ryan Kelly is back, Braden Smith as well, trying to heal up a little bit better. But they didn't let the Steelers pass rush wreck the game either. So it was interesting to see those numbers going down. But yeah, just like every week, the Colts are going to have to lean on that offensive line.
Yeah, and you also have to think that, this is kind of a little bit of a side point, but we've seen this, that the Colts really need to get out of that ridiculous tendency to play their competition. Okay. They need to go into this game and say, we're playing an 0-4 team. We're 2-2 coming off of 2 straight wins, and we've had 10 straight losses playing here. Okay, so they need to go in there with an attitude that they're going to beat the brakes off that team. It's not going to be that kind of game probably, but they have to go with that attitude because we've seen some abysmal performances from the Colts.
Exactly. Now let's look at the defensive side of the football, Drake, because the Colts are going up against a $275 million man in Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence, again, hasn't gotten off to the best start. His completion percentage is the lowest of his career so far. He does 4 touchdowns and only 1 interception, so he isn't turning the football over. The Jaguars just aren't converting and aren't executing well. And the thing is, too, that in the past, this is usually a game where Trevor Lawrence has a very high completion percentage and gets going because the way the Jaguars have attacked the Gus Bradley defense is with short completions, quick throws to neutralize the pass rush and take advantage of the soft coverage that Gus Bradley employs. And we've seen it time and time again now where the pressure isn't able to get to Trevor Lawrence because he's able to get the ball out quickly, and the Jaguars are just able to slowly eat their way down the field. They use Travis Etienne for that. In the past, they've used Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram. All of those guys are still on the team. So I think that is probably going to be the way that they attack this Colts defense again. Trevor Lawrence with this Jags team, the Jags are only 28th in the NFL in passing offense. That I think they're only averaging 159.3 yards per game. And Trevor Lawrence in 4 games has also been sacked 12 times. So the Jaguars offensive line certainly hasn't been anything to write home about either. But at the same time, the best way to combat that is with quick passes, getting the ball out to your receivers, not holding on to it, not allowing that Colts pass rush to really affect you. So Drake, I think one of the biggest keys in this is it's pretty simple. You can't let Trevor Lawrence get hot. You can't let Trevor Lawrence get into a rhythm. Otherwise, he is the type of quarterback that will be patient and will dink and dunk down the field, get into that rhythm, and then it's going to be hard for the Colts to stop this Jaguars passing offense.
Yes, and I've seen the Daniel Jones comparisons between the two, and the statistical comparisons. Look, man, if you ask me who I want in the fourth quarter, I'll take Trevor Lawrence. All right, look, I'm just saying he hasn't turned the ball over much. All right, obviously he's struggling. We saw the ghost spin where he saw a defender against the Bills. That was one of the weirdest games I've ever seen that guy play. He looked like a high schooler playing Division I college football. He looked just totally lost out there. Doug Peterson kind of seems dejected in his press conferences, like he wants to freaking retire or something. So I think that you're also, dare I say it, I know Calvin Ridley wasn't a big impact player last year, but Gabe Davis is a buns downgrade. I mean, you're talking about a guy with 21 targets, 9 catches. I mean, he's just a downfield threat. So there's ways to really exploit Trevor Lawrence here, but I'm just saying you cannot underestimate this guy. He is a game away. That game's coming where he's going to destroy the defense he plays. He's going to look like a number 1 pick again. You just don't want it to be against the Colts. And like you said, they do still have Christian Kirk who can make that happen. Evan Ingram's been hurt, but he's starting to get healthier. I think he was limited in practice. And then, of course, the rookie, Brian Thomas Jr. he's just been out there absolutely roasting defenses. Looks like the offensive rookie of the year so far.
Yeah, he's been very impressive, for one of the lone bright spots for the Jags offense. We do have some numbers in the chat that I want to highlight. Nathan saying, I've got some numbers for you. The last 9 years in Duval County, the Jaguars have outscored the Colts 269 to 126. Not good. It's definitely been a bloodbath down there in Jacksonville for the Colts. And then Darby also saying that Lawrence has a 100 quarterback rating in his career versus the Colts. So that's kind of what we were getting to, Drake. You can't allow Trevor Lawrence to settle in. The second stat of the day, presented by Busch Light. I'm going to keep saying that because that's just hilarious.
Until they sponsor us.
Yeah. Get us a Busch Latte sponsor. I'm all for it. But Stats Matt, look this one up. Trevor Lawrence has attempted the 4th highest rate of 10+ yard passes in the NFL. So definitely because of those deep threats you mentioned, Drake, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr. Trevor Lawrence is trying to hit those big passes, but only 20. But Lawrence has only completed 40% of those passes of 10 yards or longer, which ranks 20, or was the 10th lowest number in the NFL. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, the Colts allow 13.3 yards per downfield pass, which is the 5th most in the NFL. But here's the kicker. They're one of only 2 teams without allowing a passing touchdown where the ball traveled over 10 yards in the air. So Trevor Lawrence is attempting a lot of deep throws, but he's not completing a lot of them. The Colts are allowing a lot of deep completions, but they're not allowing those deep completions for touchdowns. So that's the gist of it. So the Colts defense definitely tightens up down there and doesn't at least allow explosive touchdowns, but the explosive plays are available. So that's going to fall on this secondary, I think. Jalen Jones. Jalen Jones has had some really good moments, but some bad moments as well, like the Packers game. I think he gave up a long completion against for the Pittsburgh Steelers against George Pickens. We've seen the playmaking ability of Julian Blackmon and Nick Cross. I think that's going to have to be on display again. And then what about the other cornerbacks? Obviously, Sam Womack III has been a very nice surprise, but he's got to keep it up. Continue that sticky coverage. Can't allow those deep shots. And certainly you want to get Kenny Moore the second back. Kenny Moore the second. I mean, you're going up against one of the best slot receivers in the NFL. I know his production hasn't been there this year, but Christian Kirk can make things happen. And Christian Kirk has made things happen against this Colts team with Kenny Moore out there even. But I would still trust Kenny Moore to be to give Christian Kirk some problems more than I do Chris Lamont. That's for certain. So this Colts secondary again is going to be tested, and if you're Gus Bradley, you can't just sit back and give these wide receivers 10 yards of cushion on every play. That's exactly what the Jaguars want to do, to complete those easy throws and allow Trevor Lawrence to get into a rhythm.
Yeah, and you're talking about obviously they've been disconnected offensively, but I mean Travis Etienne has had plenty of targets. Christian Kirk he's not even averaging 10 yards per completion, which obviously shows that they're trying to get him as the quick win guy. So yes, I think that that is a big difference. If Kenny Moore plays against Christian Kirk, okay, you have a chance of containing Christian Kirk, who is a great receiver. All right, but especially in the slot, he goes against Chris Lamont. That could be a real big mismatch, in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely could. So, and then I think, you can't just stop Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, you got to stop Travis Etienne and the running game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so far this season, the rushing attack for the Jags has been much better than their passing attack. The Jags are 13th in the NFL in rushing with 126.3 yards per game. And Travis Etienne, we also want to include Tank Bigsby in this. Tank Bigsby is a really solid backup running back, but Travis Etienne, he can just do it all. He can run in between the tackles, run outside. Obviously, a really good pass catcher as well. Drake, what do you think the Colts' plan is going to be on Travis Etienne, so that way he doesn't take over the game? Because in recent years, Etienne has had some success when it comes to these matchups.
Yeah, the thing is, I think that he's damaged Indianapolis really, really badly when it's been on the inside runs. I think that you really cannot allow this guy to get to the linebackers because he's so good in space. He's probably going to he's going to have the advantage almost every time against the linebacker. So you got to plug the gaps. I think that you're actually trying to force him to run more outside because then there's more of a chance for the linebackers to stop him. Guy like EJ Speed is going to be huge in this game, though. Okay, like he is the run-stopping linebacker. He had 2 tackles for loss last week. He was integral. Now, Najee Harris compared to Travis Etienne, there's no comparison. All right, Travis Etienne is way more difficult to tackle and game plan for. But I think there's a chance for success here. But man, I know he's beating them up as a running back, but his ability as a pass catcher is what really scares me because that's how you get Trevor Lawrence in rhythm and your quarterback getting in rhythm, especially for the Jaguars offense and Doug Peterson's style. You just can't let Trevor Lawrence, again, get in that small rhythm, that short, quick offense that they want to run, and little completions to Travis Etienne can get that going.
Exactly, especially on those third downs where the Colts have really struggled to get off the field on third down. They've done a decent job, I think, at getting teams into 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, getting them into 3rd and long. But that's when it seems like this defense goes ultra conservative and doesn't. I mean, they might bring pressure here and there, but they send their coverage back, and it usually ends up being a pass completion for 4 or 5 yards. But the defense is so far back, it ends up going for 10 to 12. And so that's what's really hurt this team. And I think that's where Travis Etienne can really hurt you is on those third downs where you give him the ball in space outside, one missed tackle by a Colts cornerback and Travis Etienne could be gone. And we've seen multiple missed tackles by Jalen Jones and by Kenny Moore this season already. So not to say they can't do it because both those guys can certainly, and we've seen it before, both those guys can be studs against the run, especially Kenny Moore and his ability to tackle. But a missed tackle by this defense and the weapons the Jags have is it could be the kiss of death because if they're just so slippery in the open field. Etienne, Christian Kirk, Tank Bigsby. Those are probably your top 3 guys. Davis and Thomas are more of your deep threats. We'll see if Evan Ingram plays. He's kind of your all-around, your deep passing tight end. But the guys I'm looking at for those short completions that can really rack up the yards after catch are Etienne, Bigsby, and Kirk. You've got to neutralize those guys. And again, you have to make sure that this offense can't get into a rhythm because that's been their worst quality is being able to get into a rhythm. They haven't shown consistency all year. Don't allow this game to be the game that the Jaguars offense finally starts showing consistency because if you do, it's going to make this defense tired. It's going to put more pressure on this offense to throw the football and not just stick to their game plan because they're going to be behind. And then when you do that, Anthony Richardson likely starts to push and you get kind of the same situation you were in against the Green Bay Packers. And nobody wants that from this Indianapolis Colts team. So they're going to have to get off to a hot start and they're going to have to show some aggressiveness. You be the aggressor in this matchup to that Jacksonville offense. Don't let them settle in and just kind of take what they're and try to stop what they're trying to do. Force your will on them. I think that's something that has to change if the Colts want to get the win on Sunday.
Yeah, and you know what? This is a better offense, by the way, than what they just faced. Okay, and you saw in the second half, especially the conservative nature. Let's hypothetically say you go into halftime 17-3, 20-3, 17-0, something like that. You cannot do that against Trevor Lawrence. You can't do that against Doug Peterson. They will come back and beat you. They did it to the Chargers in the playoffs. Pretty recent. So as soon as you play conservative football against Trevor Lawrence, number 16, dude, you will lose the game. That is when you start giving him those easy completions, which is when you get the momentum. And then just like, to the Madden players, that X factor, that crap turns on and then it's over and you lose your game. You know what I'm talking about. So I'm just saying if you have the foot on the gas pedal going into halftime somehow and you start off fast, keep that foot on the gas pedal. I'm not saying you got to take deep shots and be stupid. But defensively, for the love of God, don't just sit back 5 yards on a guy like Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram if he plays.
Yeah, I would agree. And speaking of X factors, let's reveal ours for the game on Sunday. It's a hell of a transition there, Drake. I appreciate it. But
I didn't even realize I was doing it.
But when you look at this, I feel like this game as well, just similar to how it was in Pittsburgh, there can be so many different X factors that you could point to that can really determine the outcome of this game. So I'm interested to see who you think is going to be the X factor, and in particular, which side of the ball you think it's going to come from.
So obviously, we talked about how bad the Jags defense has struggled against the pass. So I'm going to go to the other side for the Colts. I'm going number 54, Dio Dangbo, because
okay.
I think that even if Kwity Paye plays, that was tough. I think that it will be to somewhat of a limited capacity. I think that you're leaning on Dio to get it done. All right. This is a team that has shown that. I mean, obviously Trevor Lawrence has put himself in positions to get sacked, but they've not blocked well for him either. And Dio has been a chaos causer. Okay, he just causes all sorts of just pandemonium in the backfield, and even opens up additional opportunities. I'm calling it now. I think he gets a sack. I think that he's going to put a couple pressures on Lawrence. He's a straight line kind of like trained directly at you type guy, but the way the Jags have protected right now, I think he's their worst nightmare. A guy like that.
I like that argument. If we could pick coaches, if they were included in this, I would 100% go Gus Bradley, because I think how Gus Bradley is going to attack this Jags defense really could be the difference maker on Sunday. Whether he does how he has attacked them over the past couple of seasons by not really attacking them and allowing the Jags to get into a rhythm, or is he going to be more aggressive? Like he has shown at points this year that he can be more aggressive. But we're going to stick to just players. I am going to go EJ Speed. I'm going to go EJ Speed because I do think he's going to get the primary assignment of Travis Etienne when Travis Etienne is in the passing game. And I think being able to neutralize Travis Etienne, because he is undoubtedly their best player on offense, their best weapon on offense, at least if you want to say Trevor Lawrence is their best player, which depending on the day that can be true. But if you neutralize Travis Etienne, that really hurts this Jaguars offense, because then you have to throw the football to the deep threats, or you have to make sure that Christian Kirk gets going. But really the rhythm of this offense is established through Travis Etienne. So they got to take him away. And I think EJ Speed is going to be a really big part of that. So Drake, we've previewed this whole game top to bottom. Colts, Jaguars, 1:00 Eastern on Sunday in Jacksonville. Again, it's been 10 years since the Colts have won in Jacksonville. And remember, guys, the Colts don't play in Jacksonville every other year, every third year, every fourth year. It's every year they have an opportunity to play in Jacksonville, and they can't seem to win. And they're underdogs in this one too. Vegas doesn't think they're going to win this one either. So people in the chat, throw in your predictions. We'll highlight them here on the show. But Drake, who gets the victory on Sunday? Colts or Jags?
You know, this is a really difficult prediction just because of I get caught in the aura of like how bad they've been in the past, but you have to look at this current situation. I mean, the Jags are spiraling the hell out of control. All right, Doug Peterson, I'm telling you, go look at his press conferences. This guy does not want to be there when he is being asked questions. He looks like a dad that is just looking at 4 kids going, the hell am I supposed to do with all these kids? Like he's just totally just burnt out, he looks like. But if he isn't burnt out, that is a hell of a football coach, an incredible play caller, good quarterback whisperer too. I think this is going to be a closer game than people think. I also think it's going to be a bit of a shootout because I think Lawrence is going to find some rhythm. I think this is going to be 30-27, and I think the Colts are going to get a victory because I do think that Shane Steichen, if I could go coaches, I would have gone Steichen as the X factor, because that is a guy that I would be quivering in my boots if I was the defensive coordinator for Jacksonville, because that's a guy who's going to know how to attack your secondary.
Drake is on the Colts to break the streak in Jacksonville.
Hey, I did it. I got it last week, man.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah,
Let's keep
you
that train
did.
rolling.
You did. You've been on it with your predictions. Me, not so much. I think I'm 1-3 this year, so I'm not doing too hot. You guys probably don't want to listen. You probably don't want to listen to me on my predictions. But let's look at the chat. Daniel is saying, I really want to see Alec Pierce shred the Jags secondary and go for 130 yards. 31-10 Colts, 10 long years. Beat Duval. That's a hell of a prediction, Daniel. We got Gordaki's Playground 33-6 Colts. That would be a blowout. I'd be shocked.
Did Lawrence play in that game?
Yeah. Are we looking at maybe the ghost of Mark Brunell that comes out of retirement to play that game? Who knows? Paul Wilson 28-14 Colts. Bank it. I got Sean Contright 27-20 Colts. So we got a lot of people on the Colts. But guys, I can't do it. I can't until the Colts actually win in Jacksonville. I've picked them so many times over these last 10 years to win in Jacksonville, and every single time they let me down. So I am going to go. I think it is going to be a little bit higher scoring. I will give you that, Drake. I'm going to go 27-23 Jacksonville, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong because nothing would make me happier than to see this streak end so we don't have to talk about it. See the Colts go to 3-2, but until they actually do, I have to pick the Jaguars in this instance. So I'm going 27-23 Jags. But again, like I said last week against the Steelers, I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about this prediction. And last week I was wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong this week as well. I think it all is going to come down to, though, that defense and how this defense game plans and attacks the Jags offense. If it's how we've seen in previous years, I think Trevor Lawrence will easily get into a rhythm, and it's going to be hard to really stop this Jags offense on Sunday. But if the Colts switch things up and don't allow that to happen, then I think the edge goes to Indianapolis.
Yeah, and Gus Bradley has shown in moments that he is okay with shedding that old a stubborn defensive coordinator, tag that we've given him, because look, the dude's been stubborn as hell. He doesn't change much. You even heard Bill Belichick, who, regardless of what Colts fans say, is one of the greatest defensive minds ever, on Pat McAfee breaking down that Packers game. He's like, well, he's not making any adjustments. I mean, he did against the Steelers. You saw Fields running for his life at times. I'm just saying, I think Gus Bradley has shown a capability to modernize his defensive approach. We'll see what happens for Sunday.
Yeah. And hey, we've got more predictions. Our good buddy, NFL Nerd, said Steichen does give us a huge edge, and AR is his ideal weapon. 28-24 Colts. Truitt also saying Colts 21-17. We have Bruce saying 20-17 Colts. So I'm the only one that's on the Jaguars train. And guys, I hope you're all right. I really, really do, because I think this win could be really big for the Colts. Their confidence just getting over the hump in Jacksonville. And if the Colts do win, it likely means Anthony Richardson has a really good game, which I think we all want to see. So, Drake, let's talk about this big injury report that was released for the Colts today. And guys, since it is Wednesday, it's definitely not as clear of a picture as what we normally go through on Thursdays, but we still want to highlight the injury report here for the Colts. So usually Wednesday, we will say this up front, if any players dealing with a little something, the Colts generally keep them out, just as a precautionary reason. So the list of DNPs, very, very long. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor with the ankle, Ryan Kelly with a neck injury, Kenny Moore II with a hip, Kwity Paye with a quad. But all three of those guys did not play against the Pittsburgh Steelers. None of them practiced on Wednesday as well. Zaire Franklin dealing with an illness. That's nothing serious. I would assume Zaire is back tomorrow. Braden Smith did not practice with the same knee issue that was bothering him last week. And remember, Braden Smith missed 2 days of practice, still played, and didn't allow a sack by TJ Watt. So Braden Smith, we hope that continues and he's able to go on Sunday. And then finally, the final DNP was Grant Stewart with a heel injury. Patrick's favorite guy. Patrick's not in the chat tonight. I'm a little disappointed.
Unbelievable.
And not acceptable from the CFO. And then obviously Anthony Richardson, we talked about him earlier, was limited today with the oblique injury, but says he is feeling much better than he did on Sunday, and even much better than he did yesterday. So Drake, looking at this injury report, obviously a lot of starters on there. But if you had to pick the guys that you are most worried about missing on Sunday, who are those couple of guys?
So it'd be the guys that didn't play on against the Steelers. So really, I'd be the most worried about well, actually, excuse me, four guys. I'd be worried about Ryan Kelly. I'd be worried about Kenny Moore because a hip. I mean, dude, if you have a hip injury, people just downplay that sometimes. That is everything. That's all your rotation, right? So, like, if you have a hip injury, I mean, that kind of led into an oblique injury for Richardson. So I'm a little worried about Moore. I'm worried about Pay. I'm not worried about Smith because he always has a knee designation. Always. It doesn't matter if he's healthy. He's got a knee designation. But Jonathan Taylor, of course, that ankle, I just do not expect him to play. I think you're going to see DNP the whole way.
Yeah, I would expect Jonathan Taylor to be out against the Jaguars. It would actually surprise me if he does practice this week.
Sure.
But yeah, Kwity Paye, Kenny Moore the second, those guys are crucial to this game. Need both of those guys back. Tanner Bortolini held up well in Ryan Kelly's stead last week. I think if Kelly can't go, Bortolini would still be able to hold it down at that center position. But Kenny Moore and Kwity Paye, crucial this week, especially Kwity Paye, when you talk about the guy that was lost on Sunday who was put on IR earlier this week, and that's Tyquan Lewis. So Tyquan Lewis was placed on injured reserve due to an elbow injury he suffered in the fourth quarter against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Colts haven't put a timetable on it. They do think that he will return at some point this year, so it's not season ending, but Drake, it's a tough loss. It really is, because Tyquan Lewis was, again, one of your starters. This makes the fourth starter on defense for the Colts that's currently on IR, as he joins DeForest Buckner, Juju Brents, and Samson Ebukam. He may have been the starter for Samson Ebukam, but again, Tyquan Lewis was doing a very good job out there as a pass rusher. He was getting good pressure. The Colts were using him on the inside on some of those pass rushing downs and put Latu outside. Tyquan Lewis may not seem like a big loss, but it is a big loss for this defensive line.
Yeah, and everyone, looks at the box score. They look at the numbers. They look at the stats, and I respect that. Tyquan Lewis, though, has been through like the most ridiculous injury circumstances I've ever seen a Colts player go through, and yet since last year, all he's done is just continue to progress, and he was starting more than he's ever started before. Like, he was being leaned on more than he's ever been leaned on before. So it is crushing for us as analysts to see this happen to Tyquan Lewis, because number 94 has been through hell, people, and he just keeps on getting through it. I think the Colts are just going to sit there and wait, because if he can get through what he's been through up to this point, I'm sure he can get through IR.
Yeah. So again, really tough break for Tyquan Lewis, and hopefully he can come back sooner rather than later. Now, we won't go through the entire Jaguars injury report, but I do want to highlight some of the bigger names, especially the DNPs. The Jags had two did not practice today, with Josh Hines-Allen, who's dealing with a concussion, and Devin Lloyd with a knee injury, the other linebacker opposite of Foye Oluokun. So there's a chance that the Jaguars are down their top pass rusher, their top two linebackers, and their top cornerback on Sunday. So that's definitely something to monitor. Some other names that were limited today: both top running backs, Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby, Gabe Davis, Evan Ingram. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Darnell Savage and Jarian Jones were both limited as well. So some pretty big names for the Jaguars are banged up, just like with the Colts. And I do think that most of those guys probably will play. Josh Hines-Allen going through that concussion protocol, it's going to be really, really tough for him to be able to be out there on Sunday. So you're probably looking at least their top pass rusher, top linebacker, and top corner not suiting up for the Jaguars.
Yeah, and this just because you also have plenty of injuries, right? But like outside of quarterback, and we're expecting Richardson to play, and then running back, which you still have a pretty decent committee, the Colts offense is complete. Right. So like You're talking about this offensive line that is top 10. This is literally the game where on paper the Colts should absolutely run over Jacksonville. And I'm talking in the ground game too. But they, as we heard before, they can stop the ground game. So I just think you cannot overlook this defense. I know they're banged up. I know they look really, really rough right now, and they're 0-4. But man, I'm saying it right now. The defense and Trevor Lawrence, they are one game away from breaking out and coming back, and you just do not want it to happen, as me and Andrew said, against you in Week 5.
Exactly. Let's talk about the latest Colts news and rumors, Drake, before we get on out of here on this Wednesday evening. So because Tyquan Lewis went on injured reserve, the Colts signed defensive tackle Adam Gotsis to the active roster from the practice squad. And he was playing some defensive end on Sunday, I noticed, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's got position versatility, just like Tyquan Lewis does, so he can move up and down the defensive line. The Colts also signed running back Trent Penix and cornerback Kelvin Joseph to the practice squad. In my opinion, Drake, adding Trent Penix back to the practice squad, even more indication that Jonathan Taylor isn't going to play on Sunday.
Yeah, and I wrote a piece about him getting picked up. Did not realize that Trent Penix played plenty of tight end. And that is an interesting athlete right there, and a guy that pretty much has fullback, tight end, and running back capability.
Yeah, you may even see him out there on offense if the Colts do call him up on Sunday. And then finally, the Colts released kicker Spencer Schrader from the practice squad to make room for Penix and Joseph. So if you weren't convinced that the Colts had confidence in Matt Gay, you should be now, because there's literally no other kicker on the Colts roster right now. And I wrote a piece about it earlier this week. Gay knows that he's got to get it fixed. He also knows what the problem is. I'll let you go and read my story to hear what he had to say. But while the Colts don't have another kicker, I think the leash is getting shorter for Matt Gay, Drake, because we're now starting to see the comments from Shane Steichen of just, he is our kicker. He'll get through it. We have confidence in him. Now Shane Steichen's saying, we got to make those moving forward. So it just is those small little tweaks in rhetoric from Shane Steichen. That's really all you're going to get out of him. But at the same time, when you notice those little tweaks in his rhetoric, that matters. So the leash is definitely much shorter for Matt Gay, and being 3 of 5 to start the year, simply not good enough for what they're paying him. So he's got to get it fixed. He knows that. It sounds like he knows what the issue is. But the question is he going to be able to fix that? And I think only time is going to tell on that one.
Yeah, and we always look back to that Baltimore game in Week 3 last year, where he just was cranking it on those 50-yarders, and now it's a problem. So maybe it's mental, maybe it's his hip, maybe it's just something that he's trying to get through with the yips or something. I don't know, but regardless, like you said, the team showed nothing but confidence in him by removing Spencer Schrader, who had played during the preseason, and everyone was super excited about. Fans still, even a 75% Matt Gay is probably better than a 100% Spencer Schrader.
Matt Gay is 100% on kicks under 50 yards, 0% on kicks of over 50 yards. That's what has to change. That's what has to change. It has to change fast, because it hasn't cost the Colts a game yet, but it's going to if this keeps up. So Colts at Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars on Sunday. Again, we've already mentioned a lot this episode, but it's been 10 years since the Colts got a W down there in Jacksonville. But it seems like with how the Jaguars have been recently going through this struggle, the locker room is definitely not in a good place, has been reported. The defense has a lot of injuries around it. If there's any time to break the curse and get a win in Jacksonville, it's on Sunday, Drake, and we're going to have to see if the Colts are able to pull it off.
Yeah, this is, again, we've said it once and we'll say it a million times. You can't let this be the bounce back game that Jacksonville will eventually have. You got to send them into 0-5 and into total oblivion.
Exactly. So that's our show for tonight, guys. Really, really appreciate everybody tuning in to talk Colts Jags with us this evening. Only one super chat, but shout out to the man, Paul Wilson. Thank you so much for all of your support, and everyone else that joined us this evening. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts_SI on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so your notifications are on and you never miss an episode. And while you're here, make sure you throw a like on the comment wherever you're watching us right now. Go ahead and do it. And then why not? Just go ahead and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts as well. Apple, Spotify, Google, we're everywhere. Subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can continue to reach other Colts fans just like you. Drake, let's tell the people what they need to go check out on horseshoehuddle.com and what's going to be out there on horseshoehuddle.com as we get set to preview this Colts-Jags matchup.
Yeah, so I did a whole bunch of different roster transactions and stuff with all these injuries. Go check out all the rest of those on our channel. But 3 Colts breaking expectations in 2024. And then, of course, I'll have my 5 keys to a Colts victory over the Jaguars. So go check those pieces out with the rest of our amazing writers at Indianapolis Colts on SI.com.
Absolutely. And if you haven't seen my work so far this week, like I mentioned, have a piece out there on Matt Gay and his kicking struggles, what he had to say about it all, what Shane Steichen had to say. It was very interesting to see the Colts kicker dive into all of that. And then tomorrow, Anthony Richardson spoke to the media today to talk about where he's at with his injury and his mindset heading into this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll have my analysis on that, as well as other pieces coming out later this week on horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we'll be back Monday night to break it all down after the Colts take on the Jaguars. Are we going to have our 3rd straight victory Monday in a row? Or is it going to be the 11th straight year that we're talking about a Colts loss in Jacksonville? Either way, we'll be right back here, Colts fans, so you might as well join us, whether it's Victory Monday or you're getting over the loss. We'll see you right back here Monday night.